I stared at the shattered remains of my marriage, realizing that betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it rewrites your entire history. My name is Oliver Howard, and I'm 33 years old. Each morning, I wake up in the same house where I once believed in forever, now haunted by the echo of broken promises. The sight of my wife Sienna wrapped in Andre Cole's arms in our kitchen, our sacred space, carved something permanent into my soul. Her coworker, her affair partner, touching her like I never existed. The marble countertop where we'd shared countless morning coffees became the altar of their betrayal. But even as my hands trembled that night, I knew I held an ace they couldn't see. Long before they played their hand, I'd already secured my future. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. The grocery bag felt light in my arms as I stepped through our front door that evening. Ground beef, tomatoes, garlic, ingredients for the pasta sauce Sienna used to love when we first married. 7 years ago, I would have called ahead to tell her I was picking up dinner. Tonight, like so many nights lately, I hadn't bothered. The house was oddly quiet, but not empty. You know that feeling when something's off in your own home? Like the air itself has shifted? A muffled laugh drifted from the kitchen. Sienna's laugh, but different, harder, more careless. My feet carried me forward before my mind could catch up. There they were, tangled against our kitchen counter. Andre's hands where mine should be. Sienna's lips pressed against his neck. The tomatoes in my bag suddenly felt like lead weights. I cleared my throat. They jumped apart like teenagers caught by parents, but there was nothing childish about the look in Sienna's eyes when she faced me. No shame, no remorse, just defiance. Oliver, Andre straightened his shirt, running a hand through his gel-slicked hair. We didn't. I knew it. My voice came out steadier than I felt, each word precise and sharp. Every late night, every excuse. You think I didn't notice? Sienna's chin lifted, that familiar prideful tilt I used to find endearing. You were never enough, Oliver. Andre makes me feel alive. The words should have cut deeper, but they only confirmed what I'd suspected for months. Every missed dinner, every text she'd hidden, every working late excuse, they weren't clumsy mistakes. They were choices. You call betrayal alive? I asked, my fists clenching at my sides. We didn't mean for you to find out this way, Andre muttered, trying to edge toward the door, always the coward when confronted. No. I turned my gaze on him. How exactly did you mean for it to happen? More secrets? More lies? Or were you planning to keep coming into my house, drinking my coffee, sleeping with my wife until it got boring? Don't act self-righteous, Sienna snapped. You and your rigid routines, your careful budgets, your quiet little life. I've been suffocating for years. You could have left. The muscles in my jaw ached from tension. Could have been honest. Instead, you chose this. Oh, I'm leaving. Her laugh was cruel now. I've already spoken with an attorney. You'll be hearing from them tomorrow. The fury in my chest wanted to explode, to shout, to demand answers for every moment she'd lied to my face. Instead, I set the grocery bag on the counter between us, letting it stand like a barrier between our old life and whatever this was becoming. I met her eyes one last time. The woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. The silence stretched between us, heavy with 7 years of memories turning sour. Then I turned and walked away, even as she shouted after me, "This house won't be yours much longer, Oliver. Better get used to it." The doorbell rang at exactly 8:47 the next morning. I remember checking my watch, thinking it was too early for package delivery. Through the front window, I spotted a woman in a blazer clutching a manila envelope. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what this was. "Mr. Howard?" She managed a practiced smile. "I'm here to serve you with legal documents." The envelope felt impossibly heavy in my hands. Inside, black and white pages spelled out accusations that made my jaw clench. Controlling behavior, financial secrecy, emotional withdrawal. Each charge more absurd than the last. The sound of heels on hardwood made me look up. Sienna stood in the living room doorway, arms crossed, satisfaction written across her face. She'd clearly been waiting for this moment. "That's just the beginning," she said, her voice dripping with confidence. "My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything. Maybe more, given how you've treated me." "Treated you?" I kept my voice level despite the anger burning in my chest. Betrayal isn't grounds for profit, Sienna. We'll see what the judge thinks about that. She grabbed her purse from the counter. I'm staying at Andre's. My lawyer will contact yours. The front door slammed behind her, and I forced myself to breathe slowly. My mind raced through options, but my face remained steady, a skill learned from years of workplace negotiations. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd saved months ago, just in case. Paige Miller's office, came the crisp response. This is Oliver Howard. I need to speak with Paige about divorce proceedings. It's urgent. 3 hours later, I sat across from Paige in her downtown office, surrounded by law books and carefully organized files. Her reputation for handling complex divorces was well earned. She listened intently as I laid out everything. Sienna's affair with Andre, the ambush with divorce papers, her demands for support. Document everything, Paige instructed, sliding a legal pad across her desk. Text messages, emails, credit card statements, especially anything showing their relationship timeline. And Oliver? She leaned forward. Don't touch any accounts she might claim as marital property. That includes your retirement funds. What are our chances? I asked. Evidence wins cases, she replied, her tone reassuring but realistic. We'll build ours carefully, but I won't lie, this will be exhausting. Sienna's lawyer will try to paint you as controlling, using your financial caution against you. Are you ready for that fight? More than ready. That night, I spread bank statements across my dining room table, the space where Sienna and I once shared meals now converted to a war room. Each receipt told a story, her increasing withdrawals, suspicious charges at restaurants I'd never visited, hotel bills from work conferences that coincided with Andre's social media posts. My fingers brushed against my wallet, where I kept a folded reminder of the ace up my sleeve, a lottery ticket worth $12 million that I legally registered in my mother Evelyn's name months ago when Sienna's lies began stacking up. Patience, I reminded myself. Patience would be my weapon. I photographed each page of the divorce filing, carefully uploading them to a password-protected folder marked Evidence. In the quiet of our half-empty house, I muttered, You have no idea what's coming, Sienna. At my kitchen table, I methodically sorted through months of evidence, a paper trail of betrayal laid bare under the harsh morning light. Credit card statements showed dinners I never attended. Rideshare receipts marked late-night trips to Andre's address. Text messages between them, retrieved from our shared cloud account, revealed their mockery of my trust. The sight of our old ceramic fruit bowl in the center of the table brought back memories of Sunday breakfasts, when Sienna used to fill it with fresh peaches and plums. Now it held paper clips and sticky notes, tools for documenting deceit. I drove to my mother's house, the familiar route giving my mind space to settle. Evelyn was already waiting at her kitchen counter, 2 steaming cups of coffee prepared just the way we liked them. The morning sun streamed through her lace curtains, casting delicate shadows across her worried face. How are you holding up? She asked, sliding a mug toward me. I'm managing. I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic. But I keep thinking about that lottery ticket. Was I wrong to hide it? No. Evelyn's voice carried the steady conviction I needed to hear. When you came to me months ago, saying something felt off with Sienna, that was your instinct protecting you. Putting that money in my name wasn't just smart, it was necessary. I wanted to believe I was being paranoid, I admitted. But every time she came home late, every time she pulled away when I reached for her, I knew. Mom reached across the table, her hand covering mine. Stay calm, Oliver. Let the truth do its work. People like Sienna and Andre, they trip over their own lies eventually. The following week, I stood beside Paige in the courthouse's fluorescent-lit hallway. Sienna swept past us in a white dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. Andre lounged against the back wall of the courtroom, arms crossed, wearing that same smug expression that made my fingers itch to wipe it off his face. Your Honor, Sienna's attorney began, Mr. Howard has systematically controlled all financial aspects of this marriage. My client is entitled to half of all assets, plus temporary support while, if I may, Paige interrupted, rising with a folder in hand. We have documentation showing Mrs. Howard's systematic misuse of joint accounts. She approached the bench. Credit card statements showing purchases at luxury hotels, expensive restaurants, all while meeting with Mr. Cole, her affair partner who's present in court today. Judge Carter's frown deepened as she reviewed the evidence. Mrs. Howard, This court takes a dim view of parties who deplete marital assets during divorce proceedings. She adjusted her glasses. Your request for temporary spousal support is denied. Furthermore, I'm issuing an order preventing any additional charges to joint accounts. Sienna's face flushed red. Andre shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Walking out with Paige, I felt the first real surge of hope since this nightmare began. We're on the right track, she assured me. The judge sees through them. That feeling lasted until I reached my car. There, tucked under the windshield wiper like a twisted greeting card, was a folded piece of paper. The message, scrawled in angry capitals, read, "Back off, or you'll regret it." My jaw clenched as I crumpled the note in my fist. I slapped the crumpled threat note onto Paige's desk the next morning. She smoothed it out, her expression hardening as she read. "This crosses a line," she said, reaching for her phone. "We need to document this. The police should have it on record." "You really think that's necessary?" My stomach churned at the thought of escalating things. "Trust me, Oliver, threats like this only get worse if you ignore them." She looked me straight in the eye, and we both know who's behind it. An hour later, I sat in a hard plastic chair at the police station, describing the note to an officer who typed everything into his computer. When he asked if I had any suspicions about who might have left it, I mentioned Andre's name. The officer's fingers paused over the keyboard. "The same Andre Cole who's been seen with your wife?" "That's right." I kept my voice steady, professional. Back at my office, I dove into the evidence gathering that had become my second job. Our shared cloud account was a goldmine of deleted messages. Sienna had never been tech-savvy enough to realize that deleted didn't mean gone. The texts between her and Andre scrolled across my screen like a script of betrayal. "Oliver's such a fool," she'd written. "He doesn't even check the credit card statements." "Book that suite again," Andre had replied. "The one with the ocean view. His money, our pleasure." I printed everything, my hands steady despite the fury building in my chest. The familiar whir of the printer helped me focus, watching page after page of their calculated deception emerge. Paige's binder grew thicker by the day. Nights were the hardest. I'd converted the guest room into my workspace, spreading documents across the bed under a single desk lamp. Sienna's footsteps would echo down the hallway, followed by the sharp crack of doors being slammed. "Having fun playing detective?" she'd call out, her voice dripping with mockery. "You're pathetic, Oliver. You know that?" I kept my silence, letting her words bounce off the closed door while I highlighted another hotel charge, another restaurant bill for two. The next court date arrived faster than I expected. Paige laid out the evidence methodically, every excessive charge, every hidden rendezvous documented in black and white. Judge Carter's expression grew sterner with each revelation. "Mrs. Howard," she finally said, "your spending shows a clear pattern of marital waste. Until these proceedings conclude, I'm granting Mr. Howard exclusive use of the marital residence." Sienna shot to her feet. "This is ridiculous. You can't—" "Mrs. Howard," the judge's voice cut through her protest. "That's enough." Sienna stormed past me, pausing just long enough to hiss, "You will regret this, Oliver. I promise you that." I kept my face neutral, my breathing even, though my heart hammered against my ribs. That evening I sat across from my mother at her kitchen table, pushing pasta around my plate while steam rose between us. "You're doing exactly what you need to do," Evelyn said softly. "Let them thrash and threaten. Patience is still your strongest weapon." I nodded, trying to absorb her certainty into my bones. The text came just before midnight. My phone's screen lit up the darkness of my room with an unknown number. "You can't protect her forever." I stared at those 5 words glowing in the dark, feeling their weight settle onto my shoulders. The moment I woke up, I forwarded that threatening text to Paige. Her response came minutes later. "Call me, now." "This isn't a game anymore," she said when I got her on the line. "We need to document everything. And Oliver, you might want to think about installing security cameras." My throat tightened. "You think they'd actually—" People get desperate when they're losing. And right now, they're definitely losing. The next few days blurred together in a haze of paperwork and anxiety. Every morning I'd check account balances before my first cup of coffee. Every evening I'd add new documents to my growing evidence file. The routine of my regular job felt almost surreal, reviewing contracts and attending meetings while my personal life transformed into a full-time legal battle. I drove to my mother's house that Saturday, spreading bank statements across her kitchen table. The familiar scent of her coffee filled the room as we reviewed the documents showing her sole ownership of the lottery funds. "Everything's separate," Evelyn assured me, pointing to account numbers. "I've never touched your finances, Oliver. The money's exactly where it should be." She squeezed my shoulder, "and I'll tell that to any judge who asks." The next court date arrived with its own fresh hell. Sienna's attorney stood before Judge Carter, his voice dripping with manufactured outrage. "Your Honor, my client deserves half of Mr. Howard's pension. The emotional suffering she's endured—" "Objection," Paige cut in, rising from her chair. She pulled out a stack of receipts, presenting them to the court. "If we're discussing suffering, Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence of charges made to joint accounts." You'll notice Andre Cole's name appears repeatedly. The judge examined the documents, her frown deepening. "Mrs. Howard, this court takes a very dim view of dishonesty. Until further notice, you are restricted from accessing any joint financial accounts." Sienna's face flushed red, but for once, she stayed silent. Walking out of the courthouse that afternoon, sunshine warm on my face, I felt something close to relief. The evidence was working. The truth was winning. I drove home with my shoulders lighter than they'd been in weeks. That feeling lasted until I opened my front door. The sight hit me like a physical blow. Drawers pulled out and overturned. Papers scattered across the hardwood floors. My filing cabinet wrenched open, folders spilling their contents like wounded animals. My hands shook as I dialed 911, scanning the chaos for anything missing. That's when I spotted it. A crumpled piece of paper that hadn't been there this morning, placed deliberately in the center of my desk. I unfolded it with numb fingers, reading the words scrawled in angry black ink. "You can't hide forever." The police officers moved through my house methodically, checking windows and door frames for signs of forced entry. Detective Martinez crouched by the back door, running her gloved fingers along the lock. "No visible damage," she said, straightening up. "Whoever did this either had a key or knows how to pick locks clean." I stood in the middle of my ransacked living room, hands clenched at my sides. The mess felt personal. Only my legal documents had been touched, while valuable electronics sat untouched on their shelves. My wedding photo lay face down on the floor, glass cracked in a spiderweb pattern. Paige arrived 20 minutes after I called her, camera in hand. "Don't touch anything else," she instructed, moving through the rooms with precise focus. The shutter clicked steadily as she documented everything: the scattered papers, the threatening note, the forced filing cabinet. "They're getting desperate," I said, watching her work. "This is Sienna and Andre, has to be." "I agree," Paige lowered her camera. "And we'll use it." Every piece of this is going in front of the judge. That evening, I drove to my mother's house with 3 boxes of documents. We spent hours organizing duplicate copies of everything into her fireproof safe. The familiar scent of her jasmine tea filled the kitchen as we worked. "They think they can intimidate you," Evelyn said, carefully labeling each folder. "But they don't understand what you're made of." 3 days later, I sat rigid in the courtroom while Sienna took the stand. She'd worn a conservative blue dress, playing the role of wounded wife to perfection. "Andre Cole and I were just friends until after I filed for divorce," she testified, her voice steady. "Oliver's accusations about an affair are completely false." My jaw clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. Paige stood, approaching the bench with measured steps. "Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit 27. She projected a series of photos onto the courtroom screen. These were taken 2 months before Mrs. Howard filed for divorce. The timestamps were crystal clear: Sienna and Andre at a restaurant, holding hands across the table, leaning in for an intimate kiss. The color drained from Sienna's face. Judge Carter's voice cut through the silence. "Mrs. Howard, are you aware that perjury is a serious offense? This court does not take kindly to witnesses who lie under oath." Sienna's composure cracked. I may have misremembered the timeline." The judge's warning hung in the air like smoke as Sienna stepped down. Throughout it all, I kept my eyes forward, refusing to meet her venomous glare from across the aisle. After the session, Paige pulled me aside in the courthouse hallway. "The judge is seeing through their act," she said quietly. "But the final hearing is where everything matters." That's when all the cards hit the table. That evening, I sat across from my mother at her dinner table, pushing pasta around my plate while she watched me with knowing eyes. "You've shown more discipline than I thought possible," Evelyn said softly. "I'm proud of how you've handled this." I moved to her window, staring out at the stars appearing in the darkening sky. The endgame was so close now, I could almost taste it. One more push, I whispered, and it's over. I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting my navy tie with steady hands. The suit I'd chosen was charcoal gray, conservative, respectable, exactly what the moment required. 7 months of calculated patience had led to this morning. My phone buzzed with a text from Paige. "Ready when you are." The drive to the courthouse felt surreal, like watching someone else navigate through morning traffic. I'd rehearsed this day countless times in my mind, but nothing prepared me for the weight of knowing everything would change in the next few hours. Paige waited on the courthouse steps, briefcase in hand. "How are you holding up?" "Ready to end this," I said, following her through security. We were early, but Sienna made sure to arrive last, a calculated entrance in a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than a month's mortgage. Andre slouched in the back row, wearing that familiar smirk that made my shoulders tense. I kept my eyes forward. "Your Honor," Sienna's attorney began, rising to his feet. "My client has endured significant hardship during this marriage. We're seeking 50% of Mr. Howard's pension, equal division of the marital home's equity, and compensatory support for the sacrifices Mrs. Howard made to support her husband's career." I heard Sienna whisper something to Andre. Her laugh, though quiet, carried just far enough for me to catch. "We'll be set for life." Paige stood, calm and collected. "Your Honor, we've provided extensive documentation of Mrs. Howard's misuse of marital funds." She lifted a thick binder. Bank statements showing unauthorized transfers, credit card charges at hotels with Mr. Cole, and deliberate attempts to drain joint accounts after separation. The judge's glasses caught the fluorescent light as she reviewed the evidence. Twice she interrupted Sienna's attorney mid-argument, her tone sharp with disapproval. "Counsel," she cut in during his third attempt to justify Sienna's spending. "These receipts clearly show your client used marital funds for an extramarital affair. Do you have any explanation that doesn't insult this court's intelligence?" Sienna's confident smile began to crack. She clutched her attorney's arm, whispering urgently in his ear. Judge Carter straightened her papers. "Having reviewed all evidence presented, I'm prepared to deliver my findings." She peered over her glasses at both parties. "This court finds Mrs. Howard's conduct during marriage, and these proceedings demonstrates a pattern of financial misconduct and dishonesty." The room fell silent. My heart hammered against my ribs. Therefore, Mr. Howard is awarded 60% of the couple's savings and retirement accounts. Furthermore, given Mrs. Howard's demonstrated inability to maintain the marital property responsibly, full ownership of the marital home will transfer to Mr. Howard, with appropriate equity offsets. Sienna gasped. The sound echoed through the hushed courtroom. "However," the judge continued, adjusting her glasses, "there is one additional matter this court must address." I held my breath, feeling the moment balance on a knife's edge. 7 months of preparation, of careful planning and silent endurance had led to this exact second. In the gallery behind me, I heard Andre shift uneasily in his seat. Judge Carter paused, studying a document before her with deliberate attention. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. The silence shattered as Judge Carter's words filled the courtroom. "It has come to light that a $12 million lottery prize Mr. Howard received was legally named under Mr. Howard's mother. It is not marital property and is therefore beyond this court's division." My chest loosened for the first time in months. I watched Sienna's face drain of color, her perfectly applied makeup now stark against her bloodless cheeks. Her manicured hands gripped the table edge so hard her knuckles went white. "Your Honor," her attorney stammered, shuffling papers with trembling fingers. We weren't made aware of any lottery winnings." "That's because it's not marital property, Counselor," Judge Carter replied firmly. "The court has verified that Mr. Howard claimed these funds and that they were legally named to Evelyn Howard. They are outside this court's jurisdiction." A harsh whisper cut through the silence. "You son of a—" Andre's curse died in his throat as the bailiff turned to stare him down. Beside me, Paige calmly collected our documents, sliding them into her leather folder with practiced precision. I sat still, hands folded in my lap, finally allowing myself to savor the weight of preparation paying off. Every careful step, every silent night of planning had led to this moment. Furthermore, Judge Carter continued, given Mrs. Howard's documented false testimony regarding her relationship with Mr. Cole, this court orders her to reimburse Mr. Howard for 30% of his attorney fees. She lifted her gavel. "This concludes these proceedings. Divorce granted." The crack of the gavel echoed like a starting pistol. Sienna shot to her feet, her cream-colored dress now wrinkled from her grip on the chair. She stormed toward the door, her heels striking the floor like hammers. Andre scrambled after her, his smirk replaced by something hollow and lost. Outside the courtroom, reporters covering other cases turned to watch them pass. I caught fragments of whispers. Millions hidden. Completely blindsided. "Congratulations," Paige said quietly as we gathered our things. "Your discipline paid off." We walked together through the courthouse corridors, my steps feeling lighter with each passing moment. Sunlight streamed through the entrance doors ahead, and for the first time in months, I felt its warmth as something promising rather than accusatory. On the courthouse steps, I pulled out my phone and dialed. The line rang twice before my mother's familiar voice answered. "It's done," I said simply. I could hear her smile through the phone. 7 months of weight lifted from my shoulders as I stood in the morning light, finally free to breathe again. 1 month after the court's final decree, I stood on the cedar-planked patio I'd built at Mom's house, watching steaks sizzle on the new grill. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard, and the smoke carried that perfect mix of hickory and beef that always reminded me of better days. "Perfect evening for this," I said, carefully flipping a ribeye. Mom sat in one of the Adirondack chairs I'd assembled last weekend, her silver hair catching the golden light. "You always did know how to celebrate properly," she said, sipping her iced tea. I smiled, remembering how we'd planned this moment during those darker days. The $12 million had never really been just hers. We'd agreed early on that it would build both our futures. Putting it in her name had been about protection, not greed. The kind of protection Sienna never understood. "You know," Mom said, setting down her glass, "I keep thinking about that day in court. The look on her face when Judge Carter made that announcement." She shook her head. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. "That's because you have a good heart," I replied, checking the temperature gauge. "But some people mistake kindness for weakness. Sienna certainly did." The meat sizzled as I moved it to a cooler spot on the grill. From where I stood, I could see the new landscaping we'd put in. Berry bushes and flowering perennials that would come back stronger each year, just like us. "Did you hear about Andre?" Mom asked carefully. I nodded. "Left town 3 days after the hearing. Apparently their great romance couldn't survive an empty bank account. Last I'd heard, Sienna was living in some rundown complex off Highway 9, the kind of place she used to mock when we drove past. No more designer clothes or spa days, no more Andre whispering sweet promises in her ear. Just silence and the echo of choices she couldn't undo. "You were right about preparing," I told Mom, plating the first steak. "All those years teaching me to think ahead, to protect what matters. It paid off." She smiled warmly. "You listened. That's more than most people do." I set our plates on the patio table, the wood still fresh and unmarred. The steaks rested perfectly pink in the center, just the way we liked them. In the distance, a cardinal called to its mate, and the evening air carried the scent of Mom's gardenia bushes. "To foresight," I said, raising my glass, "and to family who actually deserve the name." Mom lifted her glass in return. "To justice," she added softly, "the kind that comes from patience, not anger." The fire pit crackled beside us, its flames painting everything in warm, honest light. I looked across at my mother, this woman who taught me that true strength lies in preparation, not reaction. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that betrayal never brings the fortune its architects imagine. It only leaves them empty, grasping at shadows while truth walks away in the sunlight. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.